Good day, here is the news at noon. First, the highlights. Lagos State government to enforce provision of firefighting devices in buildings. U.S. Secretary of State praises Nigeria on HIV/AIDS prevention, COVID-19 response. On the foreign scene, Japan sentences man to death for 2019 anime studio fire. And in sport, world number 6 Zverev stuns Alcaraz to book semi-final spot with Medvedev in Australian Open Championship. Now the details. I am Dele Agadumo. The Lagos State government is set to enforce the requirement for the provision of firefighting devices in buildings in line with the Lagos State Urban and Regional Planning and Development Law 2019 as amended. Commissioner for Physical Planning and Urban Development, Olumide Oluyinka, who made this known, said the move became expedient to forestall fire disasters in the state as the recent fire outbreak in Mandela's building, Broad Street, Lagos Island, was enough warning for everyone to embrace physical planning laws and endeavor to build right. Oluyinka stated that the requirement for the provision of fire safety devices in buildings is as important as maintaining the right setbacks and airspaces, noting that these requirements are to ensure the safety and security of lives and property. He urged property owners and developers to adhere strictly to provisions of physical planning laws to avoid having their property sealed. The Office of Internal Audit has engaged the services of the University of Calgary, Canada, for a 5-day training of selected internal auditors. Speaking at the opening ceremony of the training, Special Advisor to Lagos State Governor on Internal Audit, Oyeyemi Ayola, noted that the skill set and capacity training is to expose the internal auditors in service to global standards and procedures of auditing electronic revenue collections and revenue management. The special advisor maintained that to achieve the quality of life that Lagosians desire and to keep up with the themes plus developmental agenda of the present administration, there is a need for the state government to expand its non-tax internally generated revenue. Ayola said auditors in Lagos State government employment will assist the government in blocking revenue leakages, reduce the risk inherent in revenue collections, and ultimately collaborate with other stakeholders to improve non-tax IGR from 18 to 40%. She added that this will make more funds available for the developmental projects in the education, health, security sectors of Lagos economy, thereby enhancing the overall quality of life for Lagos residents. The Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, has constructed a 150 million litres storage facility for the Port Harcourt Refining Company ahead of full operations of the plants. According to the company, the storage facility was constructed in Atlas Cove. It adds that the company had signed build, operate and transfer agreements for the rehabilitation of pipelines and storage facilities nationwide. The Atlas Cove jetty is a major installation of NNPCL for receipt and distribution of petroleum products to the western part of Nigeria and is located within the precincts of Takwa Bay in Lagos State. Now to the rest of the stories. The United States Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, has expressed satisfaction about Nigeria's progress on health, particularly the HIV and AIDS prevention program. He also praised the strides made by the Nigerian government in addressing the COVID-19 pandemic and the response to other infectious diseases. Blinken, who paid a scheduled visit to the Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, NIMR, Nigeria's premier institute for basic, applied medical, operational and public health research, during his working tour of U.S. facilities in the state, expressed his pleasure at the success of the work at the facility. He described what he saw at the NIMR as a powerful example of the partnership between the United States of Nigeria on public health, noting that it was a reflection of the transition from simply assisting to helping Nigerians develop the capacity to work so effectively themselves as well as for other people. Blinken's visit to the NIMR symbolized the U.S. commitment to supporting Nigeria's healthcare system. The U.S. is a major donor to Nigeria's health sector, and it has invested almost $8.3 billion in HIV and AIDS in Nigeria, with over 1.6 million Nigerians accessing antiretroviral drug treatment. Kebbi State Governor Nasri Idris has inaugurated a 100-bed mother and child hospital in Safia Bagudu local government area of the state. The hospital was built by the Office of the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals. Governor Idris commended President Bola Tinubu for his commitment to the health sector through several initiatives, and most especially the input of the Office of the Sustainable Development Goals. Senior Special Assistant to the President on Sustainable Development Goals, Adejoke Orilukwe Adefulire, said the facility is one of the many mother and child centers constructed and fully equipped by the OSAP SDGs across the country. Now to foreign news. A Japanese man has been sentenced to death for an arson attack at a Kyoto animation studio in 2019, which killed 36 people and injured dozens more. The incident, one of Japan's deadliest in recent decades, killed mostly young artists and shocked the anime world. Shinji Aoba, 45, pleaded guilty to the attack, but his lawyers had sought a lighter sentence on grounds of mental incompetence. In July 2019, he burst into the studio during a workday, splashing petrol on the ground floor and setting it alight while repeatedly shouting, "Drop dead." He later said during his guilty plea in September 2023 that he did not think so many people would die. Alba himself suffered burns to over 90% of his body in the fire and was only arrested after he had recovered from operations. Now, sports. Alexander Zverev battled through pain barrier to stun Carlos Alcaraz and book an Australian Open semi-final against Daniil Medvedev, weathering a big fight back from the world number 2. The German 6th seed eventually prevailed 6-1, 6-3, 6-7, 6-4 for a phenomenal win on Rod Laver Arena to make the last 4 at a Grand Slam for a 7th time. The 26-year-old last made the semis in Melbourne in 2020 and has only once been to a Grand Slam final, when he lost the 2020 US Open decider to Dominic Thiem despite holding a 2-0 lead. Before meeting Zverev, Alcaraz had only dropped one set and a single service game and has spent 5 hours less on court than the German. And that ends our news at noon. Just before we go, maintain adequate distance from the vehicle ahead of you to avoid collision. You can follow us and like all our various social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Lagos Traffic 961; Instagram, Lagos Traffic Radio 961. Watch us live on Facebook, Lagos Traffic Radio 96.1 FM. On YouTube, subscribe and watch all our previous programs and news on our channel, Traffic Radio 961. Did you know that the Sanwo-Olu administration introduced the Lagos Economic Acceleration Program, LEAP, to reduce the effect of the COVID-19 pandemic on small businesses? You can get more details on the Lagos State Government website. To end the news with the highlights of the major stories. The Lagos State Government is set to enforce the requirement for the provision of the firefighting devices in buildings in line with the Lagos State Urban and Regional Planning and Development Law 2019 as amended. The United States Secretary of State Anthony Blinken has expressed satisfaction about Nigeria's progress on health, particularly the HIV and AIDS prevention program. We also told you that a Japanese man has been sentenced to death for an arson attack at a Kyoto animation studio in 2019, which killed 36 people and injured dozens more. And in sport, Alexander Zverev battled through the pain barrier to stun Carlos Alcaraz and book an Australian Open semi-final against Daniil Medvedev, weathering a big fight back from the world number 2. For contact with the newsroom, send a message to Lagos Traffic Radio at lagostate.gov.ng. That ends the news broadcast compiled by Kayode Mafulashere. I am Dele Agadumo. Good afternoon. Thank you for listening.